The following is a production of Gearhead Media. All right, welcome back to the All Automotive Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Clausen, and today we got my brother and his friend Paul, and we're going to be talking about restoration and what we're doing and what we've been doing over the summer, or since the last time we had this conversation. Oh boy. So 6 liters tore apart. I got the pistons in it, so it's going back together. So I got a lot to talk about. I don't know about you guys. So, Paul, what's going on? You were talking earlier before we started the show, you were talking about your old bike that you bought that was able to be bought from the Sears catalog. So fill us in on that thing.
Yeah, so that was the Gilera 106 SS, a 1966. Jeff and I were getting together for a distinguished gentleman's ride. I wanted to say, was it May, Jeff?
It was Memorial Day weekend, yeah.
And so Jeff came over towards my house because there was kind of like a central meeting point that all the riders were going to be doing together. And of course, what always happens is we get ready to ride, and lo and behold, Gilera doesn't want to run.
Oh no!
Yeah, it looked like we had lost compression. I really, for quite a long time, I chased down getting new gaskets and things because I'd never seen things like this before. They were the brass gaskets.
Okay. Yep.
Side of the head and the jug. So it took a while to find that kind of stuff. Got it. That maybe wasn't the problem. Ended up dropping it off at a shop, and he ended up hatching or honing out the inside of the bore. What was happening also is I was not getting acceleration. So low on compression and no acceleration. Long and short, took it to a shop. Gentleman was working on it. He had to go out of town. I picked the bike up, said it was finished. Got it home. It hasn't really run correctly. So I got to reach out to the bike shop and see what we can do to rectify it and get it all fixed up.
Okay, so still working on it, sounds like.
That one's still working on it.
So might be time for, like I was saying before, I don't know, you're talking about he honed out the cylinder and made the rings and stuff. Said he broke one of your rings or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the rings are sensitive and very difficult to find. So it actually has 3 rings on the piston head, and so the bottom one is actually an oil ring, I guess. It's got it is some holes in it to release some oil, and it's delicate and it snapped, and then I ended up getting some out of I found some in Greece, of all places.
Wow.
So that got shipped, and then it ended up being a buddy of ours, the guru of the bike, Bill Murder. He lives about a half hour away from us. He was cleaning out his garage, and he found a piston with 3 rings, and so he actually dropped it off at the shop for me. And so
that's
I got
excellent.
to get to his place and give him some money for that. And then as soon as he dropped it off, wouldn't you know it came in the mail. So I do have an extra set of rings if someone
well, you might want to keep those.
It wasn't even worth sending back, right? So we're just playing with that still and having fun.
So now, do you have like a shop manual for that thing?
Oh yeah, I have 2 of them.
Okay.
I mean, I tell you, I probably could draw you a diagram of the engine as we speak. We've played with it so much, and it's just,
like me with some things. I can just close my eyes and take everything apart.
Yeah, I mean, the carburetor, I can do it in my sleep, and it just, I mean, I'd like to say it's cut and dry, it's simple, but apparently not.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know. It sounds to me maybe like if the compression's good, then it would seem like the rings are seated, or it's not having an issue there. But like I was saying before we got on, a cylinder leak down test would let you know if it's going past the valves or whatever. But I don't know with it being seems like you could have adapted maybe 100cc is probably kind of kind of common with some of these little bikes. I know Honda still makes a 100cc.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, we put a different kind of engine on it, call it a day. Still
Yeah.
keep looking. As Jeff mentioned earlier, I think this is our third engine we're on. I mean, you can find engines. This guy Bill's got some more, but how much more? I guess at this point, I probably could have bought three bikes running.
Right. Well, that's not the point. That's not the point. So anyway, boy, that would be something, I guess, if you retrofitted something that actually is newer, but that wouldn't really make it that kind of bike, though. Maybe it would just have to be. Maybe you'll just have to leave it as a show bike.
Well, I looked at getting the wenches, cutting it through the ceiling in the garage, mounting it up, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And, put it next to its trophy and say it was a trophy winner back in its day.
Well, it's still cool, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's cool to look at. Great conversation piece. Still love the paint job when I look at it. The Jaguar Racing or British Racing Green, whatever it was, with the white. It's a beautiful color.
Yeah, you'll have to text me some pictures, and when we post the blurb from this podcast episode, I'll include the pictures, so that'll be cool. Yeah, something for the fans.
That's it.
Yeah, so it's so did you haven't been able to take it to any shows or anything like that, or?
No, I mean the goal always was to go to Vintage Days. It didn't make it, but there's a positive swing to Vintage Days as I was able to take the 75 Yamaha DT 250 to the event.
Oh, so let's talk about that thing.
So it seems to be running pretty good right now. I think it's still running a little rich. I will tell you, I went on an event with some guys. The bikers that were behind me do not really like two strokes. with the way that stuff.
Are you mixing the gas for that thing, or does it have like an oil injector pump or something?
It has a pump on it. There's nothing right now that says the pump doesn't work.
Well, I guess it.
But I don't know.
Good.
So with that being said, I mix my own because I just don't trust it yet. So I should really look at it because I think it does work. But that'll be something to try,
Yeah, and what year did you say it was?
75.
Oh boy.
I'll send you a photo of that. Yeah, I just it's a super fun bike, 250 cc.
Now what all did you do to that thing?
The only thing I did on that is I changed out the ignition system from a 6-volt to a 12.
Okay.
Right? Did I go to 12? Yeah, it was 6 because the battery was 6, and I went to 12
volts. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said bolt.
Yeah, so there is no battery anymore. You overrided it, or I overrid it.
6 volts. So 6-volt motorcycle back in the 70s, huh?
Yeah, and it just makes it easier for ignition starting. So so the pictures, this one, I think if I can get it done, it'll. This is what I rode with my first ride for somebody for a charity, and I made it about 10 miles, and all of a sudden I broke down, and then come to find out it was my all my ignition wires or the wires from my spark plug melted onto the muffler, and exposed all the wires. I was like, son of a gun. But it's tons of fun.
So you learned something.
So I learned something there, right? Relatively, at least it was an easy fix.
It looks really good. We're going to have to put that picture up too. That looks really cool.
Yeah, it was not. It wasn't. It was just cleaned. Nothing's been repainted on it. Maybe some small things here or there, but nothing. No frame off restoration or anything. It's just new tires and new brakes. So
if you like if you like watching rebuilding motorcycles, I have a friend who runs his own YouTube channel. His name is Chris, and it's called CK Cycles, and he just got his hands on a Yamaha VMAX.
Oh,
so he's posted some videos about that. Chris is very meticulous, and he had one of these. He also redid an older Yamaha. I think it was a TT 500.
Mm-hmm.
One that you got to kick it to a certain spot, and there's a little thing, sight glass, so that you know it's at top dead center, and then so you don't break your ankle. So fellow listeners, check out CK Cycles. He's done several restorations for different folks. He had a CL, like a 72 CL 125 or CL 100, a Honda. And it's funny how when he started that up, how the sound of that thing just brought back some memories for me, particularly because when I was little, I had a XR 100 that I rode the snot out of, I guess is what you would say. It needed a cylinder head and some other things by the time I turned 16. So it was 3 years old and worn out for sure. But good times. I actually was telling Jeff the other day that when we were talking that I was looking for one of those.
Oh,
and I found like an 84, which was really close, but I'm not sure I want to go with that in those particular years. For whatever reason, Honda had the idea of not making that frame come down or underneath the engine, so they had to mount the foot pegs somehow, and they mounted the foot pegs to the bottom of the engine.
Huh.
So, yeah, and I think that was one of the things that was going on with my bike, and the foot pegs also had the kickstand. So after a while, one of the two bolts loosened up, and gosh, I think I fought that for a while at the end of its life. But yeah, I don't know. I found an 86, and that's like a full frame. They went to the monoshock in the back, but yeah, that's one of the things I'd kind of been poking around looking for, but I don't know. It's one of those things. But that bike looks really cool. That reminds me of our neighbors had something similar, and I think it was like blue in color.
We will be back after a short break.
Hey everybody, Matt here. Wanted to take a minute to talk about our main sponsor, GeForce Automotive. Did you know that they're a certified service center through Auto Value? What does that get you, you say? Well, that gets you 3 years or 36,000-mile warranty on select repairs. Want to know more about that? Visit their website at www.geforceautomotive.net. Click on that banner that says Make an Appointment and make your appointment today. We're proud to have them on board as the main sponsor of the All Automotive podcast. So now let's get back to it. More of the All Automotive podcast.
Yeah, there's blue. I've seen blue, yellow, and green, and the orange. So a different whatever size. I think the 400s are mostly yellows. The 175s are blues, maybe, and and I think 125 is a mixture of different colors.
And those are kind of well sought after, aren't they? I mean, people.
The prices have been pretty good. I just saw. I'll be honest with you, I was kind of bummed out. I think somebody just sold something on Marketplace. For like $2,500, probably it looked better restoration than mine. So I think whoever got it, in my opinion, got a nice deal if it was in good shape. It looked good. So I think it's a $2,500 to $3,000. Maybe $3,200 bike restored, and it's a lot of fun. It rides great. Makes a lot of noise, and it's fun. So.
Yeah, and I think some of the stuff, I don't know if Jeff can attest to this too, is he's rebuilt some motorcycles too, but I think some of that stuff, you try to find side panels and logos, and I mean, at least for the Hondas, I can't even, I have a 2006 CRF 450, and I can't even find the original graphics that go on the shrouds on the side of the tank that catch the air for the
I've seen
radiators.
some logos like $60 or something like that to replace the 250. And I don't know. I really didn't look for too many like the aftermarket side parts. I'm not so sure. I know there's a lot of websites selling stuff, but you go to it and they're always missing something. Of course, it's usually generally the part I need. And
Right.
but most of my stuff's coming out of the country. So there's two places I think in Michigan that have a really good Yamaha store. I think it's over more towards over Indiana, heading towards Chicago. So
Okay. Yeah, probably.
a couple of shops over there.
Yeah.
Something's there.
I would guess that
yeah,
would
so-
be right around Kalamazoo or something, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. But and then I sent you a picture of another bike. So I ended up buying 2 more dirt bikes over the summer after coming back from from the vintage days. It was a Kawasaki 250, a 75, and then the 74 Suzuki DTS 250. And the Kawasaki was mint. I shouldn't say it. It was rusty gold, had all its parts, but I couldn't get a spark on it. The Suzuki sparked and started, and so I kept it. So, and I haven't done anything to it yet. So I just rode it down the street the other day. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it looks pretty.
Runs,
looks pretty clean.
It's rusty. It'll need some love.
Yeah.
But the big thing right now, I mean, for me, is that it runs. So at least I got spark and then cleaned it out, and we're like, boom, here we go.
Yeah.
And I got a good price on them.
Yeah, if you're talking about your smoke screen behind you, I don't know that that's a bad thing for a 2-stroke. Maybe if you don't want to fall out spark plugs all the time, but I don't know. I think maybe some of those had an issue with that little pump, maybe pumping too much, or
I don't know. I know that Suzuki's got a pump on there as well, but the Yamaha, that pumps the oil into the carb, but the Suzuki looks like it's doing it into the engine, which I don't, not making sense to me. But I haven't really
looked. There's a couple of different ways. Either you could do away with it, or let the tank go dry and just mix the gas yourself and see what happens.
Yeah.
That's an option.
Yeah, always. Jeff, what did you do this summer?
Well, this summer was supposed to be the summer that my Dodge saw the road. My Dodge Charger saw the road, a lot more than it has in the past. And so I, unfortunately, I took it out, thought, okay, I'm going to start putting some miles on it. And I thought I had it where it needed to be. And I went to the gas station and filled it up. It's the first time it's been full in a very long time. And I saw I'm pulling out, and I see this guy looking at me, like watching me pull out of the gas station. And I'm thinking, oh, he likes the car. It's so cool. And then I'm a mile down the road. I start smelling fuel. I'm like, did I really start smelling fuel? And so I said, well, I better pull over and see what this is. Well, it's pouring out of the gas tank where the sending unit goes in, because on that car, the sending unit's not on the top. It's on the side. And so I'm like, well, he didn't care about the car. He was wondering how long it was going to be before I burned down.
Right. That could be real dangerous.
That could be a problem, right? So she's on the lift right now, waiting to have the tank pulled and see if I can figure out. It probably needs might need a new sending unit, but it probably needs, a gasket, or, something's obviously gone sideways in there. So what happened then? It sort of sat. So
did all the gas leak out while you were when you were stopped?
No, I ended up draining it, because I just turned around and went back home. I ended up draining most of it out, but I ran the lawnmower on 93 octane all summer since I had it drained out of the Charger. Nothing else to do with it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of a similar story with that old that Monte Carlo I sold. We're making room for Delilah and got stuff for the truck and the barn, and you know what? I haven't done anything with this car in over 15 years, so it's getting ready to go out the door. So I decide, like an idiot, I was just like, okay, well, I haven't what an idiot. I don't know and don't do this, people. Drive your classic cars and get them out once a year or twice a year and use stable in the gas. It's just like, I thought, what? I cranked it over and it fired up for a minute and it died. And I was like, okay, so maybe I'll get some gas. So I got some gas in the gas can, put it in the tank, and, similar situation, I'm like, why am I smelling fuel? So I ended up taking the gas tank down and farting around with the fuel pump that I had to put back there. And so I know your struggle. Just to get rid of the thing. I was like,
yeah. It does point out that machines don't like to sit. And that's what, restoration is. And the problem is you got too much stuff. You don't have enough time to use it all. Right. So things don't deal well with just machines anyway, with just being left, to sit. Nothing good can happen, and that's gotten worse over time because now parts are made differently and gas is made differently, and all those things combine to give you problems like, that fuel leak that I had was probably because the tank had less than a quarter of a tank in it for so long that seal around the sender, dried out, and then when I put fuel to it, it couldn't hold it back anymore, right? So, and that's that's an unfortunate, thing when you're just looking to go out and, have some fun. Now, it happens that, as such things, happen when you have the sickness that's called, car, working on cars. I have another car that I can drive. That's a classic car, and it is in workable condition. So, my Beetle got most of the play this summer, and believe it or not, after getting it squared away when I first got it, and doing all the work that I did to it, you can hit the key and take that thing up to the ice cream shop
Saturday night.
And away you go. And I took it up to a couple weeks ago. I took it to an all Volkswagen, or a German car show, I guess, but mostly Volkswagen stuff showed up. Yeah, it was in Geneva on the lake here in Ohio. Yeah. And it's called the Bug Infestation, which I thought was a kind of a hilarious name for a classic VW show.
The Bug Infestation.
And it was, it was 70s themed. So, the DJ was dressed like a hippie and they were playing all 70s. I loved it. It was a great time. But that's the kind of cool thing that you can do when they work.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, and then, it just snowballs into, I drop the tank down and then, okay, then one of the lines that comes off the sending unit, I had to fix that. Then when I got the sending unit out, I'm like, oh, well, great. The whole thing that holds it down is messed up. So it turned into a new gas tank, new fuel pump, all 8 spark plugs. I messed around with the injectors because I left the stupid gas in it without any kind of stabilizer in it. And because the gasoline has alcohol in it, it does not work and live and play well with a lot of things in the fuel system if you are not using it. Oh, what a mess. Well, that car's gone, so it's funny. And I sold it to the guy that works across the street at the parts store, and he torments me because he drives.
Don't worry about it.
He torments me because I haven't driven that car in so long, and he's just like, I love this car, man. I drive it all the time.
Well, and more power to him, right? Like
exactly.
That sometimes
is that car. I was just like, I love that car too, but not anymore.
Well, that's the thing. Like, how many cars? Like, I'm at the limit. I was telling somebody, like, I can't buy anything else. I'm at the limit because I can't use all the stuff that I have now. And then you get to the point where how many we've all talked to. If you're in this hobby, you've all talked to the guy who's got a really cool car sitting under a tarp or a sheet, or got a bunch of junk piled on it in the garage, and he's going to redo it someday, and I was going to get ready to redo it, and meanwhile it just sits there and sits there and sits there, and as time goes by, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And
so, I know we were talking
particularly if they're left outside, right?
Right, and we were talking about that before too. It's just like, give yourself a time to get XYZ done. Like, I want to get this engine done by my anniversary, which is in October, or let's just say Halloween. it's going to be all back together, all this stuff, so now I'm working on the 6-liter for the C10 truck. Pistons are in, camshafts in. I got the lifters soaking as we speak so that they can go in. Melling was so graciously accommodating when they sold me all of that stuff, the oil pump, the camshaft, the timing chain, the gears. We kind of just kept it stock. I didn't go anything crazy because Danny's got to drive it. But I think a 6-liter in place of a straight 6, it's gonna go pretty good, I think, already. So I'm not really too awful worried about it. But I have now taken the intake manifold to work and cleaned all that out and cleaning out the injectors and I every time I go back out to the barn, that engine just stares at me and it's like, okay, I need to clean up this part, and I'm making myself a list, and I have attention deficit disorder, and it's rears its ugly head on a daily basis. So for me, I got to write stuff down and make myself a list, and so I can follow it, and then make myself God, I got to seriously set timelines, because it's just like, oh my gosh, it took me so long to get the brakes whipped into shape on that thing, and do the front disc brake swap, and boy, it works, and it works good now. But I did start the 6-cylinder the other day and moved it around and got it out of the barn because I needed the hoist to look at the kids' car. So anyway, that was my story. But yeah, I mean, set a deadline. I mean, come on, otherwise it's just gonna be sitting there.
Well, I tell you what I want to know about that is, and you're right about the deadlines, but I tell you what I want to know about that is you're using a modern engine in an old vehicle, and how do you reconcile, your computer controlled this and all that stuff? Because I'll be honest with you, I still have that Jeep project. If anybody listens to the first episode that we were on, I still have that Jeep project going in my, but it's almost done. It's almost done, and we've set the timeline. This fall, it's going home.
Yeah.
To the owner, because it's almost done. But and I rewired that vehicle, but we used an old motor, an older motor with a HEI ignition and things that were simple. I guess not computer controlled. How do you approach having an engine that originally was produced in a computer controlled car?
Well, this one's a little easier. I'm stepping forward into the early 2000s. I mean, I know my Monte Carlo was adapted for the LT1. I took that out of an old retired Cadillac Fleetwood, which had the same engine that the police cars had in them in 95, 6. So I'm familiar with adapting a harness, and I actually made that harness all myself. But for this one, and LS swaps are very common, and you can't talk to me or anybody that's kind of into any kind of older car that wants to do something with the powertrain. I'm just going to LS swap it or get something. So I found a 2002, it was in a 2002 Chevrolet Silverado 3/4 ton heavy duty, and this kid north of Marshall, that's what he's doing. He's taking these LS engines and transmissions and transfer cases out of these trucks that are no good or rotted out or whatever, and he's selling them to people that want to put them in old school Chevy Blazers or whatever. So I got a hold of him, and I've got this engine, and it had a ton of miles on it. And I thought, well, I'm just going to rebuild it anyway, so it really doesn't matter. And so what I'm doing is, and what I've got, and it just came in the mail a couple weeks ago, or actually it was a week or so ago, because we went up north riding dirt bikes 2 weeks ago, and it came Friday before we left to go up there, and it was my standalone harness that I got from BP Automotive, and I went on their website, and I'm on a couple of different groups or forums that for this LS engine swaps into C10 trucks, and and people post stuff all the time, and I'm pretty much just a lurker and a follower, longtime listener, and no callers or no posts or anything like that. But I found a thread that somebody recommended, and there was like just the majority of everybody was just like, oh, these guys hands down, these guys hands down. So the harness is, I have the PCM, I have the computer. So in those years, it didn't have a transmission control module or a engine control module that was separate. They called it the powertrain control module, which is why I'm calling it the PCM. So from there, he gave me some of the harness, but he cut it, and it was kind of like a junkyard removal. And I was like, man, I'm just going to buy one. I'm going to get it so I can do what I want with it. So I went on their website. I put in the year, the engine size, the transmission that I was going to use, which was the 4L80E, which is the heavier duty 4-speed transmission that they put in a lot of the Chevy trucks. And it's actually that Chevy truck was equipped with a 4L80E, but it was equipped for a transfer case on the back end of it. So I did not buy the transmission from the kid because for whatever reason he didn't want to part with a whole setup. And I said, well, I don't need the transfer case. I thought you had a 2-wheel drive setup. And he goes, well, he sold it or whatever. And I was just like, well, you still have another one that you want to part with just the engine. Yeah. So anyway, I got all that spare wires and harness, but he kind of cut it in a couple of different spots to get it out of the truck or something. I don't know. So it wasn't really useful. It does have some workable parts. Like if I have to replace some connectors here or there, I can. But what the standalone harness is going to do for me, it's going to allow me to put the engine computer inside the vehicle, up under the dash, away from the engine area, so that I don't have to worry about that. They've specifically made the harness. They've got like a rubber grommet, and they tell you how big to bore the hole into the firewall. So it's got a little rubber grommet, and it's all in convoluted tubing. I had to tell them what mass airflow sensor I was going to use, what injectors were on it, how many terminal my alternator was, what brand map sensor is on it, and also what transmission was going in it. So they have several different models, and they do Gen 3, Gen 4. They do all the generations of the LS. So I was trying to do something, and I would have shifted gears if I had to, for something newer that had cam phasing, and I didn't really think I needed all that stuff, and it really didn't need to be that fancy, and I didn't want to really mess with all of that stuff as well. So, and this one's pretty basic. It's drive-by cable. It's not drive-by wire. So it's the year or two before they did that. I think they did that in 2004 or 5. They went to accelerator pedal sensor and a throttle that opened all by itself. There was no cable. So I figured, well, so I don't have to put another part on the floor, and I can use the existing gas pedal with a cable and clean the throttle body. So, again, this is all a standalone thing, and it's got a little relay center. I just got to hook up power to it. And then it even has the data link connector, so I can hook a scan tool to it and see, if there's any check engine lights too. And this place also will program my computer, but I do have a contact or a friend of mine that used to work for me. His brother-in-law can do custom PCM tuning, I guess, if you will.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I mean, it's set up for, all the connectors are all there. If you want air conditioning on it or not. And I said no, because you're really not gonna. it doesn't have air conditioning to start with, so it's not like I'm going to try and adapt anything there. So I'm just going to lose, the belt and the extra weight, whatever. And then I was on, and to get it to go into the truck, I got a kit. And this is what I've been looking at for the last 2 or 3 months was the install kit, like the mounts and the transmission mount and that stuff. And then I do have because of my shop and stuff, I do have a local place that can take the drive shaft and shorten it, or I've heard some guys using, because mine's a long box. I had heard one of the guys say that the aluminum drive shaft from a Chevy 2-wheel drive newer style will work. I don't know that for sure, but that would be awesome, because we could just go to the salvage yard and just yank one out of something and put the yoke on that fits the 4L80 and we're good. But like I said, I didn't want it to be too crazy. I wasn't sure I was going to do anything with the differential in the back, but it's already a heavy half, so it's already got a heavier duty differential in the rear anyway, so I don't know. Maybe we'll break it.
It's I mean, so then it doesn't sound that hard. I mean, it sounds like, you have to pay attention to the details, but it's not going to be, crazy difficult in order to do what you're doing. And even if it was a little bit fancier or a little bit newer engine, it's probably still going to be something that you can do. So that you hear about LS swaps and they have to have all this, computer controlled stuff. It really doesn't sound like it's that bad.
No, and actually I was trying to utilize the original PCM. That's why I didn't really do anything with the camshaft or going really crazy, because I'm thinking, man, this thing will just run really well with what it's got in it. I can just get Scott's brother-in-law to maybe tune out the rear O2s so it doesn't think it needs, so it doesn't set catalytic converter codes, and they can just go in there and turn those 2 codes off. So it's not doing the catalyst monitoring. And then we'll turn off a couple of different things, and then maybe we'll mess with the fuel and the timing curve a little bit and see if we can make it run a little bit better than it would on a stock program. But this company, the BP Automotive, they do have a website, and it's pretty much that.com and bpautomotive.com, and then they've got they got harnesses for Mopars, I believe. So they got.
Well, they need to sponsor you with this
right. Yeah,
this testimonial. This testimonial that you're giving right here, but that's cool. I guess I was just wondering, like, how do you adapt those things? Because in our case, we did swap a more modern motor into an older vehicle, but it still wasn't new enough that, the old parts, wouldn't go in. As a first gen small block, so you're not talking about any computer controlled anything. It does have, a HEI distributor, but that's as fancy as it got. So, and we were able to get it wired, and it works. And the owner comes over and starts it up and takes it for, he's been taking it for some shakedown cruises, and now we're down to putting like a console and things in it, and so we're really close for it to be, it's essentially done. Like there's nothing left there. That was a 2-year project, and we started with a non-running Jeep, and we swapped the engine, and we did all those things. And the thing that kept us honest there was, as Matt said, you got to have a goal. But the thing that kept us honest is the owner was motivated. So, he wanted to do stuff. I had to get out there and do the things that I needed to do so that he could do the things that he needed to do, because we were tag teaming it where, I needed to weld something and then he could do something. And so I welded it, and then he would come out and do his work, and I'd be working on something else while he was in there. So, that was another successful project, just because the owner was able to keep motivated. Now, this is a guy without a wife or kids or anything like that. So that simplifies things, right? Like, we don't have to go into that. That's a whole nother podcast.
This guy's a total loser.
Yeah, that's going to screw up the algorithm if we start talking about that.
Gearhead Media presents marital advice.
Marital advice from 3 people who don't know much about it.
Yeah, it's funny how we try to get out to the, I try to get out there and it's just like, oh, come on. But then last fall it got put on the back burner because, man, I bought that GMC flare side that I'd made my plow truck. So I bought a plow on an auction and got, didn't have any wiring and I didn't really, so after I got all the stuff there and kind of sat down for an hour or so in the barn and looked at I was like, oh, well, this ain't gonna be too hard. Okay. So,
yeah, right. Let's just get this done. Well, that's how it is. It's bite size. And we talked about that, I think, the first time too, is you pick something off and you do it. And then as you do those things, it starts, it starts, building momentum. You just have to, just do the little thing, the thing that you can do, the easy thing that you can do. And then pretty soon you're just left with the one thing that you're like, well, I have to sit down and figure this out now because this was the thing that I thought was going to be hard and I got to sit down and figure it out. And most times it's not that bad once you put your mind to it and then you're not cluttered. You don't have ADD on the other things as you pointed out, and you just,
right.
Rock and roll, get in there and rock and roll and get it done. So,
yeah, like I said, I find that it's a great idea to have a list, and I bought, I got a spiral notepad out in the barn, and I jot things down because I'll remember stuff and go, oh yeah, I wanted to do that. Well, then the last couple of weeks I've been looking to see if there was a difference in the intake manifolds, and oh my gosh, there is, and it's just like, oh boy. But the truck intake's got the taller side, but I was just concerned because if you take that engine cover off of some of those older Vortex, the thing says Vortec on there and it's got, it mounts to the top. Yeah. Well, it's covering up the wire harness that goes across the top of the engine from where the PCM is in the left front fender area. And I'm like, mine's not going to be like that. So I really don't need that. Maybe I should get like a car intake that looks like a Camaro. And
looks cool. Yeah.
So visual. I went down that rabbit hole, and then I was just like, well, I don't know that I really want to get that because then my throttle body's a 3-bolt, and then there's 4 bolts, and then there's all the electronic throttle bodies, and I was like, okay, well, maybe
not.
I'll just clean this one out. We got a new dishwasher. I'm gonna put the dishwasher.
Again, back to the not knowing much about marriage thing, using the dishwasher.
Don't do that, folks. Don't.
Yeah, guys. No, that's not a top tip.
That's a quick trip out the door.
That is not a top tip. That's a ticket to Couchville.
Yeah.
So
something.
It's something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, that was we got a new dishwasher. So yeah, the master mechanic's got to install that.
Gotta break it in.
So yeah, so the things that help me, like we were saying, that make yourself a list, try to stick to it, and then if you think of things, I just go over and jot it down. Well, I need the knock sensor harness, or I need the rear main seal plate, and put that on, and what am I doing with this? Oh, I gotta get this in the blaster and blast that all off. I don't really like the way that looks. It looks kind of silly. And then I was trying to figure out if the stock truck oil pan would actually fit in a truck and not stick down too far and go, but I'm not going to lower it, so it's not a big deal. So I'm going to put it in the way it is. But I went to Holley's website actually and found their install kit, which was the engine brackets, the mounts for the engine, and then you just use, in my instance, you just use 2002 F-body mounts that go onto the engine, and then they mount to the mounts that mount to the frame.
Nice.
And then the crossbar, it just asked what are you using, 4L80, and then it gives you the spacer. It tells you where to put it, and then tells you all the directions on if you've got to drill any holes or anything like that. So I got the truck out of the barn, turned around and backed in so that I can use the cherry picker to get the engine and the transmission out all in one piece.
Yeah, so
we'll see.
Well, the other thing that occurs to me listening to both of you guys talk is that, with Paul, he was talking about, the guy that had the rings and dropped the rings off, and that's because Paul's had a relationship with this guy since he bought the bike. He got on the phone, he got onto Facebook and, looking at the 106 group or whatever it was. And I even talked, this old guy was, when I was helping Paul with the bike, I called the guy, and the guy spent an hour with me trying, going through things. This guy wants to help, and there's guys like that. And Paul's got a relationship with, they know each other, their first name now, man. Paul just
is that true, sir?
stop over there. Yeah.
Well,
He's like, oh yeah, go over there and drink beer all the time.
So I guess what I'm saying is, it's just like you develop relationships around this stuff, and that helps you to get closer to getting the project done too. Because when he ran into trouble, he had somebody he could call, and that's the same thing with all of us. Like, if something seems daunting, like, hey, is there somebody that I can call? Like, I don't know jack about a Beetle. I know the motor's in the back, and that's about what I know. And so then, working on the things, you got to have somebody that you can talk to. And it turns out Beetle people stick together. And there's a guy right down the street from me that owns one. And he's had Beetles for forever. So once hey man, can you, and of course, who's going to say no? Like, I don't want to help you with your project. So.
Yeah. Well, and we went to the city that's just east of us there, where my shop's at. During the summer months, they have a car show on the last Friday of the month, and they shut down the downtown, and all these cars come down. And so me and Danny went to the last one. I think was the August. I don't know if they're going to have one in September or not. I'll have to look, but I think it's the last one. That was last month. And man, I couldn't, it was like, I felt like a rock star. I was walking through, hey, how you doing? Oh, walk over to talk to this guy. And I know this guy who's got like a 40 Pontiac, and he's the nicest old guy you ever want to meet in your life. He's trying to sell it. And he's telling me all about how he's got somebody like this, and all the glass is original. And I talked to him for a little bit, and then there's another customer I've got who's got a Cougar. I saw him there, so we were talking to him. And so you're right. It's not sometimes what you know, it's who you know. And I say that all the time, as far as, I've got friends in the automotive industry that text me and call me all the time, and we bounce. One of them works at a German car, so he calls me when somebody brings an American car in, and I call him when we've got a 2018 Passat that doesn't want to idle. So it's fun to meet those kind of people, and it's interesting too that I can't walk through an entire car show without getting stopped about 10 times. I think Danny was giving me the evil eye at that.
She's like, what, I'm hungry, man. Come on, let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Again, we're getting so close to like a marriage advice show here. We're gonna have to tone that down.
Well, I think ultimately it's gonna be really enjoyable to put some lawn chairs in the back of that truck and be able to take it to the car show. And then, there's a couple of them that were there, so we're over top of that and looking at all those. So we talked to, the guy sitting there behind his truck, and, how's it going? So
that's the thing that's another thing that's a motivator. Like, Paul and I were trying to get our bikes ready in the spring for the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, and we almost had it, where both of us could go. Next year, by God, we're both going. If we have to drive a car, buy a brand new bike, we're both going.
Funny because, literally it was, we knew what time the riders would be meeting a certain thing, and Jeff came to my house early, and my neighbor down the street came over, and we're all working on the bike, just trying to get it going. Like, come on, trying to get it ready for the race, right? And
right.
It was a ton of fun. Just the outcome sucked that we weren't able to do it, but we ended up we followed them in his wife's convertible Corvette, so we had a good time.
Yeah, we had a few beers and we had a few wings, so it was all good. It was all good at the end of the day.
So where was that at?
It was
Well,
in,
go ahead, Paul.
Where was it? Okay, you're breaking up. Try again.
Jeff, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it was the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. So the Cleveland participation group, which left on the east side of Cleveland, east side of Cleveland, and came all the way to the west side, right past my home. So.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's
know,
not
Jeff,
in a particular spot, and it's not like a place you ride to and stop and carry on.
There's
a charity. It's a charity event, right?
For prostate cancer and
prostate cancer, men's mental health, and you raise money, and then it's open to vintage bikes or vintage appearing bikes. There was a lot of you see a lot of weird stuff like Triumphs and Matchless and weird stuff from weird Japanese stuff and all these kind of things. And so this time it was hosted by a local work on your own bike type shop, and we rode from like the near east side of Cleveland, as Paul said, out it was about a 30-mile ride, and we rode out to Lorraine, and so we rode mostly through the city, and fun was had by all. Like I said, it's a cool thing. Part of it, the distinguished gentleman's angle is you kind of dress up like I was wearing khakis and a white shirt and a tie and and that's how you ride. You ride dapper, quote unquote, is the way that they call it. So, but it's a cool thing, and it's like, I mean, I know there's similar stuff. There's all kinds of things that you can do. That was the show that I went to, the bug infestation show. That had me out there cleaning the car and making sure it was tuned up and all this, because I'm not going to be embarrassed when I go up there. My car's not going to stall when I put it in gear or anything like that. Well, it's a cream puff, but it's old, right? So you got to make sure everything's going to work the way that it's supposed to work. So,
yeah, that was a common thing with the Chevelle back in the day. Every time you take it out, it breaks. Or you can't drive it around and do what you wanted to do with it without breaking something, I guess.
And it wasn't fun. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I broke the drive shaft because I was doing a hellacious burnout. It's like, oh no, the radiator hose fell off and I doused the whole car with antifreeze, and then I was stuck.
Well, the drive shaft thing happened to me, but everybody's like, do a burnout, man. And you're like,
see, they egg you on. That's
bang.
So you want stuff to be able to last, right?
Yeah. So I just sent you guys a picture on Sunday. I took a ride and I went about 10 miles, and I put some gas in the tank, and if there's too much gas, it'll overflow. Well, that's the first picture of me running out of gas and walking a mile home.
You didn't push it. You just left it there.
I did. I pushed it a mile. I was like, okay. So I had boots on and jeans. I'm sweating like hell. Sweat's dripping in my eye. I'm like, God damn it. Burning.
Yeah.
Hey, man, we got to be prepared for that kind of thing.
There's no fun in pushing a motorcycle, especially a dirt bike.
So what I actually, because I don't have a battery in that Yamaha, so I've got room where the battery went. So I put a little 2-cycle motor oil in there to in case I break down again or someone brings me a can of gas, I can pour that in there. And
that's good thinking.
Well, right, yeah, because it's 2-stroke. You got it, man.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that's like Mike with his CR500. You got to mix the gas. Bring some. So who has the fanny pack? Me.
Right. Yeah.
Carry this little bottle of 2-stroke oil. All right.
Right.
But that's a good time. That's a good time. You guys ought to come up and do that too.
We should do that. Like and Paul's building the stable over there so that we can, have the bikes to be able to do that. That's a great idea.
It'd be fun, and that's what the second bike now is to do for that, to go screw around. And because again, there's a dirt bike track by my home, a club you can join. It's like $700 a year. It's like Amherst Meadows, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice motocross club, and you can go anytime when you're a member. And since I'm starting to enjoy it, I think I'd like to become a member of that. But there's also, within 2 miles of my house, there's an old warehouse. This guy has an indoor motocross
Oh, really?
track, and you can run it out. So let's say 4 hours, $500, up to 10 riders. So
yeah, I'm too old to. I roll triples.
Yeah, there you go.
And doubles.
So
Don't do that anymore. Nope,
the second bike runs, so we could legitimately take 2 bikes to this thing already. My neighbor's got 2. Guys down the street have a couple. That way everybody can ride and have fun.
Yeah, if you got one that's built within the last 20 years or so,
yeah,
it would be.
Yeah.
That's what these trails
40,
are.
40, what do you think? 46 years old, you don't guarantee
this was.
We're jumping in the air.
I'm not carrying a rope to tow your DT home.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was funny. We did go. We went twice. This last trip was better than the first, but the first one we went through, it had rained, so there was tons of water holes. And when you're on a dirt bike, you got to blast through the water holes. So we had to slow down quite. I mean, you had to go through it really slow, and because it's a motocross bike and not like really a trail bike, there's like a gaping hole at the bottom of the air box. So Matt went through this hole, and Bert got to the other side, and blah. So I looked like you on that photo there. After pushing your bike, after I kicked this thing like crazy to get it to start again, because it's a not electric start, and I kind of was having a conversation with Jeff about that. It's like, I want to get one that's new, that's got an electric start, but I don't know.
Just tell it to Paul, he'll buy it.
Yeah, well, you're getting up there when you want your dirt bike to have an electric starter, so that
right. Well, if you've ever started this, now I always go and put my boot on. Go and put your motocross boots on, because if this kicks back at you, your arch of your foot is going to hurt for a week and a half. I have experience with that. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I'll just start it up. Yeah, no problem. But, ow, son of a. Yeah, so tennis shoes is not a good idea. No, not a good idea. But yeah, that's fun. We go to the Harrison area, about a 2-hour ride from here north, and there's ORV trails, and we just go. It's like a glorified 2-track, really.
Do you camp when you're there?
The one guy we go with his parents have a cabin, and his parents are very cool. Well, his dad was like, "Yeah, you guys can come up here anytime and use this cabin whenever you want. It's like, just let me know." Okay. So, and he was really cool, and he's got a side-by-side, and they go up there snowmobiling, and I'm not a fan of that, but the side-by-side, he was just like, "You guys get tired of riding them dirt bikes, you want to ride this?" He goes, "Go ahead." So this last trip, my friend Mike has had a couple of surgeries, and he had his knee replaced, and so it's a little more difficult for him to ride a dirt bike anymore. Also had his shoulder done. So
all from falling off.
Yeah, he's got some aftermarket parts inside of him now. So he was the one that got on got into the side by side and was having a blast with that. So, it was a little 800 Razor, nothing fancy, but it's a 2-seater. So it was kind of cool. I ended up kind of being the only one on a motorcycle at the end of it, but definitely enjoyable. We try to at least go up there once or twice a summer. We try not to go when it's super hot, like in July, but last couple of times we've done after Labor Day and before kind of Halloween. But this year we did August, and then we did a couple of weeks ago. So,
have you ever taken your dirt bike up to the dunes and ridden? Can you do that?
No, well, I've been to Silver Lake Sand Dunes. Is a really cool place if you have a dune buggy or a 4x4 or I don't have a paddle tire on my dirt bike, but it would be fun. And that kind of thing is fun on like a side by side or a vehicle set up for something like that. These guys just bring their trucks off the road and put them in 4-wheel drive, lower the air pressure down to 10 pounds and blast through and it's beautiful. It's on Lake Michigan. God, it's something to see. I mean, there's we did a sunset tour where they took just regular Jeep Wranglers, straight six Jeep Wranglers. And there's the first hill climb is relatively steep. And they call that test hill. They wouldn't let us go over top of it, but they wanted us to do a big U shape, like go almost to the top of it and come back down. But there's so many people there trying to get their dune buggies to go up there fast or jump off the top So there's some rules and regulations. You gotta, have a flag that's 10 feet tall or whatever, so you can see you coming over top of the hill. And it's a really beautiful place, but I don't, we like to go on the ORV trails around the Houghton Lake area, Harrison, Leota. And we rode, my bike's got an aftermarket oversized fuel tank on it, so we can ride longer than normal. It's got 2.5 gallon compared to a 1.5 gallons. So we got to about half a tank, and because we can ride on the side of the road, it's legal up there to ride on the side of the road if you have your stickers that make you an ORV. You have to have the trail sticker and then your ORV sticker, and you have to have those to ride in the sand dunes too. But and it was really cool. We went up there, a number of years ago. Stayed at a local campground, and then I didn't want to take my truck up through there, but one of the guys that we camped with had an older Bronco, the original Broncos, and from the 70s or whatever, and we had a lot of fun with that. We had a lot of fun. But there's like this big first hill, and then there's another hill, and there's another hill, and you can go down by the lake shore and chill out, and people build fires, and it's fun. It's really fun up there.
Cool.
So did you do anything with the MG? Or are you still, that's on the back burner because of the bikes?
No, I actually made quite a bit of headway with sanding. So again, it's still the sanding. Spent a lot of time with the bikes this spring. In summer, my neighbor, I have to have him come over. I think I'm ready to go. There may be just a little bit more to do with some Bondo and sanding, but other than that, I think I'm ready to go try to pick paint. And I think now the worst part is trying to find the color, because I think I know what color I want, and I see another color and something else.
That'd be like a candy apple red.
Yeah. And but then I was going to tell you guys, I just saw there's an 86 Dodge D150 for sale on auction for like $500, and it's it's got like 67,000 miles.
Wow.
You joined the Mopar gang.
Yeah, it could be something.
There you go.
So I need the MG needs certainly a date. I've enjoyed riding the motorcycle all summer and having fun, and and I don't go out. I told Jeff I go to the gym on Saturday morning, or I'll go ride down the lakeside. But yeah, it's time just to get the car done, But I got two. My neighbor gave me two little 90cc 4-wheelers over the summer, and one hadn't worked in years. The other one, he said, didn't know what was wrong with it. I ended up getting both of them running, and sold one of them. The guy, when he came to pick up both, he was buying both of them. The second one wouldn't start again. I have an idea what's wrong, but he didn't have space in his truck anyway. So I got a couple things running this summer. Had some fun, sold some
Cool.
things, made $bucks, and buy some more shit.
That's the way to do it. That's the plan. All right, well, it was good catching up with you guys.
You too.
Yeah, same here.
All right, that's going to do it for another episode of the All Automotive Podcast. Thanks to my brother Jeff, and thanks to Paul for being on the show today. We talked about a lot of stuff, so if you're into restoration and you're into cars like we are, stay tuned for our next episode coming up in a couple of months here on the All Automotive Podcast. The All Automotive Podcast is brought to you today by G-Force Automotive, and we are a product of Gearhead Media. So until next time, I'm Matt Clausen saying, hey, keep that greasy side down.